Welcome to the channel, Tessie here, and we discuss so many things on this channel: Black women in interracial relationships, women dating and better outcomes in relationships, my lifestyle. But today we're going to discuss Black women in interracial relationships and the racial bias in the wedding industry. We're going to talk about Nigerian weddings, the extravagant culture, and the untold and unmentioned standard when it comes to European partners marrying Nigerian or Black women, especially compared to the Black community. So let's get into it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you enjoy the video. Love. Almost every human being on the planet wants, seeks, and needs love. However, it's not easy for people to find love, especially Black women in interracial relationships. However, when it works, it's amazing. But in the wedding industry, love is big money.
I don't know if it's cloudy or bright. I only have eyes for you. The moon may be high, but I can't see a thing in the sky. I only have eyes for
Now, historically, Nigerian weddings have always been very extravagant, especially in the Igbo culture. Now, I am Nigerian. I am also in an interracial relationship, getting married to my fiance who's Polish in 6 weeks. And I have found that there has been an undue and untold amount of higher expectations placed on my fiance Greg. Now, that could be based on the expectation and standard of European partners. However, there is a certain level of expectation when it comes to Nigerian weddings and the standard in Nigerian communities. So let's take a look.
Taking just be. Don't take it. Taking just don't take it personal. I ain't lying, I ain't hiding. I've been grinding, multiplying. I've been trying to get my weight up, staying prayed up, meditating and taking time away. You always posting up pictures, trying to look like you winning. I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking in moments we live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, faking your life for the IG. If you got my number, don't add me, cause baby, I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. Baby, don't check for me. Taking time out to be personal. We just building, it's my season, lay foundation, make a name for generations. Please and make then take a break or a little vacation and chasing blues away. Hey, hey. You always posting up pictures, trying to look like you winning or look like you always be working, soaking the moments you live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, faking your life for the IG. If you got my number, don't add me, cause baby, I'm on hiatus.
language. Choose wisely, oh, choose wisely. Choose wisely, oh, choose wisely. As for me, now money be my love language. I love you, know they walk again. Now money be my love language. I love you, know they walk again. Now money be my love language. I love you, know they walk again. Baby, I love you. He don't cast. Wait, he don't cast it.
So I just showed you a couple of clips from some of my friends' Nigerian weddings that I attended last year, and some Nigerian weddings from TikTok, and you can see the elusive money sprays and just the general idea and mood of Nigerian weddings. They are not cheap, they are flashy, and they are out to impress. So now that I'm preparing to get married in 6 weeks, we have been planning our wedding for about 15 to 16 months. And I've noticed a lot of strange things with the vendors, especially when it comes to pricing, because I've compared my weddings with some of my friends' weddings who have Nigerian partners.
It is. It's a little
It's
bit,
not too.
a little peak.
I'm not gonna get chewed out by the priest. That's the main thing.
And so when it's fitted to you, the back will be up a little higher.
Okay.
Turn and let me show you the back.
Okay.
Nice.
It'll come up like right here.
Oh, nice.
And then Goldie has a finger loop.
Okay, you can take pictures.
Okay.
Just closed down, so this place just closed down because we were too busy eating. We were too busy eating so much. So yeah, the wedding dress shop has closed, but we will come back. Oh God. So let's talk about the discrepancies. Those two clips were the two bridal stores I did my bridal fittings at last year before I decided to go with a black woman owned designer to create my dress. The first time I got there, that dress, the first one you saw, was originally listed for $3,400. As soon as I showed the lady a picture of Greg, my fiance, because she asked, "Oh, who's your lucky groom? Let's see him. Do you have a picture?" I showed this woman a picture of Greg, and at the end of the visit, the card that I got said £6,000. Can somebody tell me why? It's not making sense. The dress went from 3,400 to £6,000 after she saw Greg's face. I don't even understand. I don't understand. So I'll talk about another instance, right? Our wedding planners are Nigerians, and the couple who owns our wedding venue are a Nigerian couple. And essentially, I found the venue and I've been visiting the venue regularly, right? So one day I said, let me take Greg along with me. And we had discussed with them prior, right, that I would like a tasting to see what their food tasted like. They didn't know what Greg looked like before. They didn't know that he was Polish or anything, or that he was white, right? They just knew that I was Nigerian. So they had initially told us that the tasting would cost maybe 100 or so. As soon as they saw Greg, they were laughing, smiling. Then when we got home after spending time with them in the venue, we were quoted a bill for hundreds and hundreds of pounds for the tasting, which is absolutely hilarious, right? The cost literally rose because they saw Greg. And I'm sure I'm not the only black woman in an interracial relationship that's experienced this. My mom literally said, they have seen that your husband-to-be is white and they are trying to make money out here. So for the ladies who have decided to be 4B or single, believe me, you're not missing out on the astronomical costs this year. But we are fortunate in that we have a lot of family support from both sides. Greg is doing very well. We have our own assets and money, and we also have a house deposit saved, so we can afford our wedding. It's not even going to stop us from buying a house. We can do that immediately afterwards. However, I won't deny that when compared with my friends' weddings, and both of my friends are married to people within the culture, so they married Nigerian partners and they are Nigerians. right? When I compare that, the cost is absolutely higher. Now, one could just say that we just have a more expensive wedding, which is probably true. But there is definitely an element of them seeing Greg, seeing that he's white, Caucasian, and thinking, you are Caucasian, so I'm going to charge you more, and you're going to spend more because you can, because that's what we expect of you. There is that expectation and standard that's not placed on the same, on the couples who are basically both Nigerians, although their weddings are still expensive as well. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to get out here, and I'm going to discuss a bit more about why that is, and why there is so much expectation, and where it comes from in terms of black women in interracial relationships, this racial bias in the wedding industry.
We're in an interracial relationship. Of course, I enjoy my pasta and lobster.
And we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up.
Oh la la la!
Will you marry?
Yes!
So, pasta and lobster is a social media trend, specifically on TikTok, that originated a couple of years ago and became really popular after Megan Thee Stallion's song Pasta and Lobster, Feeding Me Pasta and Lobster. And it essentially depicts black women in interracial relationships living leveled up lifestyles, living lavishly, traveling, eating pasta and lobster quite literally, right? Being treated well by the men who they're in a relationship with, these white or Asian men or whoever. But it is specifically catered to white men, and it also depicts black women, staying at home, stay-at-home mum life, just essentially certain avenues and certain lifestyles that may not have been available to certain black women or black women in certain situations. And it was very important because black women have only just started to understand that they can date out, that they don't have to stick to one group of people, and they don't have to date within their race if they don't want to. Of course they can, but it's not a necessity, it's not a must. There is a choice, there is option for them to date within their race or date out. And it's very important, I think, and it does hone into why there's a higher expectation of black women when it comes to them being in interracial relationships, because it's been touted as such a move up compared to just dating within your race, which is actually quite questionable. As one could say, there are quite a few black couples who are happy in love and also living very well. So we all know that dating interracially, right? It's about the character of the man, not the skin color. You don't just go out and date anybody just because they're not the same skin color as you. You still have to have standards and expectations and boundaries. Now, as you can see, black women in interracial relationships get a lot of pushback online, especially coming from the black community. And as you can see from the last TikTok, that Pacific content creator had a comment saying, from a black man saying, you couldn't get a black man, that's why you have a white man. And that's interesting because the same black community places a higher standard for black women in interracial relationships. So when a black woman gets into an interracial relationship and she marries, she is expected to be married. She's not expected to become a baby mama if she's in an interracial relationship with a white man or an Asian man. She's expected to be married. She's expected to avoid all the pitfalls and traps that black women experience in the black community when they date primarily in the black community. So getting pregnant at a young age, becoming a baby mama, falling into poverty, being in a unstable situation. Black women who marry interracially are expected to avoid, to be above the situations that black women encounter in black communities. So I find that comment very interesting. And black women in interracial relationships get a lot of pushback and a lot of people online trying to discredit their relationships because their relationships are touted so much and compared so much to black couples in the black community. And this goes for black couples in America, UK, Africa, all over the place, right? So the reality is, this expectation bleeds into the wedding industry, especially for black women who get married in interracial relationships. It bleeds into the wedding industry. There is a huge obsession with people trying to discredit black women in interracial relationships, especially black men. And there are many channels on YouTube dedicated to hating a specific sector of black women in interracial relationships, because there's so many different sectors. You've got swirlers, you've got divestors, you've got just normal interracial couples, but specifically the divestment sector, you find a lot of wacko, jacko, psychotic, weird, insane, disturbed black men who create channels specifically to discredit black women in interracial relationships. And I think it's quite interesting for a group of people who say they do not care who black women date to focus so much on discrediting black women in interracial relationships. And it actually bleeds into, it speaks to the insecurity that comes from the fact that a lot of black women are struggling when it comes to dating in the black community. So if they can go ahead and discredit black women in interracial relationships and make their relationships not look as successful, it will make them feel better about how black women are treated in relationships in the black community and the bad outcomes that many black women are getting when they engage in relationships fully and solely in the black community. I think that's very interesting. But it also speaks to just how much of a standard that people place on black women in interracial relationships, because they're so desperate to tear it down. That means they already see it as a standard that's high, and so they're desperate to tear it down, to bring it down to their level so it doesn't. Now, I'll explain why this is the case. This happens because the reality is most people in the black community, if they see a black woman date out interracially, they expect that she would become married, that she would not wait years to become a placeholder for a ring. And essentially what happens is, if a black woman fails publicly, or her interracial relationship fails, or she is struggling, she is ridiculed even more than if she was in a relationship with someone in the black community, because there is a higher expectation placed on black women. There's a racial bias that black woman in interracial relationship will get married. And it actually shows how low the standard is in the black community, because many people will say, if a black woman stays in an interracial relationship, doesn't get married and becomes a baby mama, they will say, well, what was the point of you dating out? Why didn't you just date a black man and be a baby mama anyway? Right? And that just points to the incredibly low standard in the black community, and why there is an inherent racial bias, right? When black women date out, there is an expectation that you will get married and your marriage will be amazing and that your wedding will be incredible, right? Especially if you marry out. So I think that's really, really interesting, and it speaks to just how pathetically low the standard is, and just how much black women suffer, you know, when it comes to dating and relationships, especially black women who are huge supporters of the community, who, you know, essentially coddle and like almost enable the people in the community and do everything for them and don't need anything in return. Yeah, this is essentially why people. I think it's also important to note that on my channel, I focus on black women getting better outcomes in dating and relationships, but also women in general. It doesn't really matter if they're white, black, Asian, or wherever, but I specifically focus on black women. And I always mention that black women should focus on picking the man that treats them the best. It doesn't matter the skin color, whether he's white, black, Asian, from America, Australia, Africa, and the islands, wherever, right? As long as he treats you the best, respects you, honors you, loves you, and takes care of you, that is the person for you. And I think it's really important that black women understand that they do have options, and to understand that they can choose to date out if they wish or stay within the community or the culture. It's really up to them. The reality is they have the power. Black women have the power and the choice, and to take that power within their hands for themselves and use it to forge a path that suits them best in life. And I think that's what I always focus on this channel. And that black women deserve to be treated well, deserve to be spoiled, taken care of. They deserve to turn their back on struggle life or suffering. And they are not the face of suffering. They are not the face of struggle in America or in the UK or worldwide or wherever. And they deserve to be treated well. And they deserve to be treated with respect, loved, taken care of, and cherished by whatever partner, whether man or woman, that they are with. And that is what I think really needs to be highlighted in this sector of this video. And that's where the standards in interracial relationships come in for black women. So black women who are not doing so well publicly in interracial relationships. So for example, Queen of Kings and her messy, dysfunctional, chaotic marriage with her husband Brett, which is just right? They are ridiculed a lot online. However, you will also see that successful interracial couples, happy interracial couples, like Greg and I and other interracial couples that I follow, are also trolled by some of these crazy individuals. I used to get it a lot when I first started making interracial content for black women on my channel. I would get black men popping up everywhere going, "You colonizer, you love the master, you love master's oppression, blah blah, you are a traitor, race traitor, you bed wench, oh you traitor, oh you traitorous woman, oh you," like I would get all sorts. Right? And I would block them straight to hell and laugh, right? But the reality is, it doesn't really matter if the black woman is succeeding or failing in an interracial relationship. She will receive criticism. Now, and especially if she's happy, but the criticism will be far worse, I think, if the black woman is visibly struggling in an interracial relationship, like Rose, Queen of Kings, right? So
did you hear about how this perfect couple influencer revealed that she's the one paying the bills in the relationship?
Let's not pretend that I'm the one that paid the deposit on our house. Let's not pretend that I'm not the one that paid for the Range Rover. Let's not pretend that I'm the one that paid for this whole fucking life that we live. Let's not pretend that. Let's not pretend.
Well, this is Raina, and she's a super influencer with millions of followers across multiple platforms. She talks about her relationship and how proud she is that her husband came in and saved her after having 2 kids and then becoming a single mom. The interesting part is that she's taking care of this man and their entire family, and I don't see anything wrong with that. What's wrong is the fact that she's lying about it, trying to make him out to be some kind of savior when he's clearly not. And they had the audacity to post this video telling black men, you need to take care of your kids or we are going to step in and do it for you. Raina, you have my permission to be the head of your family and take care of everything without having to lie about it. Oh, Raina, I wish you would understand that your family is still perfect if you're the power behind it. I wish more women would wake up. Ladies, what do you think? Leave a comment to let me know. I'm T-Erica with the T. Follow for more.
Let this Rose and Brent situation be a signal for you to stop idolizing people's relationships online. And that means through videos, that means through pictures, those little picture shares. You're like, oh, this couple's on vacation. I would love to do something like this. They're in a pool. You never know what's going on behind closed doors in somebody else's house. And then you're trying to apply their relationship standards to your relationship and fucking it up in the process, not knowing that those two people aren't even good for each other, actually just pieces of shit. Y'all create these random standards from these people that you see online who don't actually like, love, or even get along with each other. Stop it. I'm telling you now. Stop. Social media is going to ruin all of y'all's relationships. That is, if you let it. You could actually find someone in real life, a man, a woman, a husband, or wife, and find someone who's actually doing well in their life to idolize. Idolize your spouse. Why don't you do that? There's so many better options than this online bullshit.
Interesting thing about Rose is that she's actually managed to avoid becoming a baby mama despite her intensely disturbing dynamic with her husband Brett, right? And just their messy, chaotic YouTube and life in general, right? She has actually still managed to avoid becoming a baby mama, and that is also something that enrages people, especially some of the people who react to her. Some of them may be black women who are baby mamas, and the reality, she still managed to avoid what many black women still face in the black community. Don't get me wrong, the relationship is weird. And as I've said, black women should always have high standards when it comes to dating out. Interracial relationships, just because you date out doesn't mean you need to date a racist or a white supremacist freak or a weirdo or someone who doesn't see you as a human being. You still need to have standards, right? But the reality is, there was still that standard placed on her that she be married when she dated out, right? Because her first relationship, she was made a baby mama. She was not proposed to. And the second relationship she had, she was married. So there was still that expectation that because she married out, that racial bias, that she would be married and that she would have a good wedding, right? So that's something interesting to note. Listen, that is not an ordinary Oyibo. That's a magical Oyibo, right? We have just seen a Russian man transform into a Nigerian man, yeah? This man was moving with the spirit of Nigeria. He was moving like Jackie Chan. It was crazy. But that's just a good example of some of the theatrics that happen when black women marry in interracial relationships. The weddings especially are a huge affair because there's this big effort to include your European partner in the celebrations, get them used to the culture, and the European partner is always expected to adhere to the culture of the woman, especially the Nigerian woman. They are expected to adhere to the culture. They're expected to wear the traditional clothes. They're expected to do the traditional rites, the traditional wedding in Nigeria, the white wedding. They are also expected to pay a bride price. And you will find that they are expected to learn a dance as well, depending on the culture of the Nigerian woman, whether she's Igbo, Yoruba, Akwa Ibom, or wherever, Anambra, wherever she is. They may be expected to learn a cultural dance for that traditional wedding when they get married, right? So there's an expectation, which means it comes at a higher cost, which means that they're going to spend more money, right? And that's just the expectation and the standard place. And this is what happens when black women date interracially and they marry interracially, especially across cultures. Now, in order for you to understand why black women in interracial relationships face a racial bias in the wedding industry, you first of all need to understand the bride price, especially for African women. But even black women in America and the UK, depending on where they come from, will still face this racial bias if they are dating or marrying interracially. Now, what is a bride price? A bride price is money, property, or any other form of wealth paid by a groom or his family to the woman or the family he will be married to or is about to be married to. And there is also a biblical significance of bride price. Nigeria, amongst many other African countries, is a very religious country, and many of them take a bride price from certain sectors in the Bible, especially when it comes to Genesis. So they talk about God giving Adam a wife and how having a wife is a good thing, and essentially that men need to be able to show that they can provide for their wives. And this is something that's touted as extremely important and a huge foundation of the marriage when it comes to bride price. This is showing appreciation for the woman and the family who has brought up the woman that you have now chosen to spend the rest of your life with. So there is so many nuances to why when you marry interracially, they will expect more of you than if you marry within your race, or if you marry another Nigerian or another African or another black person from. Now, bride price is not a practice just found in Africa or African countries or African culture. You can find bride price in Asia too. In China, bride price is also a big thing, and there is a lot of pressure for the men in China and other Asian countries to pay a high bride price. Not paying a high bride price can sometimes lead to shame. And the reality is, when you pair that with dating a woman outside of your culture, let's say a black woman, the pressure becomes astronomical, especially if that black woman is also from a culture which values bride price, right? So it can get very, very hairy. The reality is, bride price is meant to protect the bride in the event of her husband deciding to divorce her, or her husband's death or illness. So there is many functions for a bride price, right? And the reality is, it's meant to show love and affection and care for the bride. Happy birthday! It's Greg's birthday today, and he is how old? How old are you? Yay! Hip hip hooray! And I've done a little something for him, and then I will look at his I think next time I come, I'll get it, and then I'll do waxing as well. Those were just a few clips of some of my favorite moments in our relationship. Honestly, it's hard to pick because we have so many. Greg and I just love spending time together, to be honest. Truly soulmates. And he is Polish and I am Nigerian, and we have been together. It will be 3 years this year now that we've been together. And time is just flying. And wow, what a wedding experience we are having so far. So let's get into it. So I hope you've been enjoying the video so far. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And now we're moving to the last part of the video, where I will be discussing Greg and I's interracial relationship, our impending marriage, and our wedding experience so far. So I spoke a bit about it earlier, in terms of like my bridal fitting and the bride price, and you know, I also mentioned the catering as well. But in terms of our interracial relationship, I'll start off with the fact that Greg and I, we are very fortunate in that we're in a very healthy relationship. We love each other to bits. We are super excited to get married. and we'll be getting married in 6 weeks. But we have been through this entire process together from start to finish, from the moment Greg proposed to me till now. And I am also pregnant. I'm heavily pregnant. My face is literally looking like jelly right now, right? So it's an interesting experience because not only are we getting married, but we're pregnant at the same time. So we're going through the wedding process while I'm pregnant. So there is a lot to discuss there, and I will get into it more. In Poland, they actually have a very big wedding culture as well. So it has been nice actually to bond with Greg over that, because when I first introduced him to Nigerian weddings and how our wedding would be, we would have two weddings, one in the UK and one traditional one in Nigeria. He was amazed, but he wasn't necessarily amazed by the scale of the grandness, because Polish weddings are actually quite big. Like, they drink and they go on late into the early hours of the morning. It is insane, right? And just talking to some of his friends and getting to know them and their experiences with their weddings in Poland, it actually helped to bridge the cultural gap. So that was super interesting. Also, Nigeria has an interesting colonial history with the UK that Poland doesn't have. So when it comes to Greg going to Nigeria, they may not necessarily clock that he's Polish. They might not make the distinction between him being Polish and him being not you from the UK, essentially. As far as they're concerned, he lives in the UK, and so that means he's European, he's Western, whatever. And so they apply the same racial bias. It doesn't really matter where he comes from in the UK, or sorry, where it doesn't really matter where he comes from in Europe. They don't really care that he's Polish or British or German. The reality is he comes from Europe, so they will apply the same racial bias towards him, no matter what European country he comes from. Another reason our day has been so expensive, our wedding has been so expensive to plan, is that we are creating a event that will cater to both our cultures. As we are marrying interracially and cross-culturally, we are trying to introduce both cultures to each other. So both Nigerian and Polish culture to each other, because both sides are equally as important. I am pregnant, right? And we're having a baby girl, which I'm very excited about. And she is Polish and Nigerian. So both sides have to be recognized in the white wedding. Both the Polish side and the Nigerian side have to be recognized, which is actually very expensive and very pricey when you think about all the cultural parts you have to include in a wedding. And that is something that also, adds to the cost. So right down from my hair and makeup to the dress, to our changing clothes, our traditional outfits that Greg has to wear, the Nigerian gifts and souvenirs that will be given to the guests, the Polish food that we have ordered, our catering. We've had to do separate catering for each side of our culture. So we've done a Nigerian menu and we've done a Polish menu. So, and then on top of that, we'll be having another evening meal. So it's absolutely insane, the cost. So there's so many things that go into marrying interracially, and you will find that it will cost you more than if you were just marrying within your culture. So there's that racial bias. When it comes to the wedding industry, it's unavoidable. In Polish culture, many of the men are quite traditional, and they do see it as, you know, a duty to provide for their families. However, they do also acknowledge the autonomy of women and that women are able to work and make their own money. So it's an interesting contrast. Greg definitely falls into that category. He loves providing and taking care of me. He pays the bills while I relax and, you know, chill out while I'm pregnant and just prepare for our wedding and the birth of our baby girl. And one of the things that I find interesting as well is just how much of a destination wedding our white wedding is for his family in the UK, and that, in Poland, and that adds to the cost of being with someone in an interracial relationship. You have to fly their entire family down to where you're having the wedding. And that is something that can be compromised, because when you date or marry interracially, most of the time the cultures that you marry into, they have close bonds with their family, especially if they're not specifically in the West, like UK or in America. So it's something that you have to do. So yeah, that's something I've also noticed. It adds a lot of costs and expenses to the wedding. Just the sheer amount of flight tickets his family have had to spend to fly into the UK from Poland. There's also that. So that's really interesting, and I thought I would note that down. So because I don't work and Greg takes care of everything, I have had the chance to go and check out the venues. I chose the wedding venue for this wedding. And bearing in mind, this is the white wedding only in the UK. It's not the traditional in Nigeria. We still have to fly over to Nigeria and do that. Ha 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 ha. But the reality is, I preferred going to the venue alone and searching for venues alone, because I was also thinking about how Greg being beside me might add an extra cost to the venue. And the venue is already insanely expensive, by £8,000, right? And the reality is that there may or may not have been an extra cost if Greg was involved in touring those venues with me. And the venue is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful, right? It holds 300 people. There's a stage, and our decorator has taken our chosen color and applied it to the scheme. But the reality is, right, it is costly and it is expensive, right? And there's that racial bias is also playing a part there. Now, the reality is, we are fortunate because we already have our house deposit, like I mentioned briefly before. So our wedding doesn't stop us from buying our house afterwards. We're planning on buying our house afterwards, and we're not in debt for the wedding, because I know a lot of people go into debt for their dream weddings and then they don't have a house deposit or they're struggling. And listen, I am loved, provided, spoiled, and taken care of. We don't struggle over here. We thrive, right? So we have our wedding already paid and our house deposit ready. Very, very exciting. So yeah, I just thought I would mention the venue too, because that's super important. So far, the entire wedding experience has been insanity. Seriously, I had to say that, but it's been insane, because even the drinks, the cost of the drinks has been nuts. We've had to get Polish drinks, Nigerian drinks, UK drinks, all the drinks that people normally drink in cultural events like a wedding, and then combine it with like 3 different cultures. It's been intense, you know. And then on top of that, we've got our, even just like ordering the cake. There have been times where I have genuinely felt it is better to leave Greg at home and speak to the vendors without him there, just so that I don't get some inflated price, right? And that's the reality. You know, even dealing with something like the church, you know, the organist, or you know, restaurant bookings, reservations, you know, just so many things. All the vendors, it's been intense, right? But we are very excited, very, very, very excited to get married. Very, very happy, very, very excited, very much looking forward to it. And so is our family and friends. You know, I've got some family flying in from Nigeria, different parts of the world. So it's going to be awesome. And I cannot wait to show it to you. I have my baby shower and bridal shower and hen night next week, which I'm going to be vlogging as well. And I'm going to be uploading. It's going to be awesome. So in conclusion to my video, Black women in interracial relationships marrying interracially and cross-culturally do face racial bias, especially when they marry European or Asian partners, but especially European partners. And racial bias can be further fueled depending on if the man that they're marrying belongs to a culture that is more traditional, and sees the man as a provider and places the role of masculinity as responsibility. That's very important, right? So in that case, the man can feel pressured sometimes to spend more because of the culture he's coming from and how he'll be perceived by the culture he is marrying into. That's also something very important to note as a conclusion. Also, Black men are very obsessed with stalking Black women in interracial relationships, and they feel the need to prove or disprove these interracial relationships, which could actually speak to their insecurity or speak to the inferiority complex that many of them feel when it comes to addressing their history with racism and their history with white and Black male relations. That's very important. So that's the conclusion I've reached. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And lastly, some of the traditions that you see in Nigerian culture, which makes their weddings so extravagant and makes their culture so rich and vibrant, such as bride price, traditional wedding, IJGB, which is I just got back. So people who have been in diaspora just going back to their African countries for the first time, or Johnny Just Come, which is people who have just come from African countries abroad. Many of these cultural phenomenons can be found in other countries other than Nigeria. So like for instance, Ghana, Zimbabwe, and all the rest. So that is the conclusion I've reached for the video, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. A little bit of information to note for my new and old subscribers. My auntie passed away recently, and it has been a very, very difficult period for me to get through, and Greg has been my absolute rock in this process, and I don't know what I would have done without him. And it's definitely taken me away from YouTube a bit because I've had to focus on my wedding and then the baby preparation, the baby shower, which my friends have organized, and now my auntie's funeral. So that has been tough, but Greg has been an absolute amazing partner and support. And I also want to thank my subscribers for their lovely messages as well in wishing my aunt to rest in peace. So yeah, I really appreciate that. You ladies are the best, and the guys as well too. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank you and I want to bless you. For the new subscribers, welcome. It's great to have you. For the old ones, it's always great to have you here, right? And I want to reiterate that I will be posting my wedding vlog on our dream wedding after our wedding has happened. So our wedding is in 6 weeks. I will not be posting on the day of the wedding. I will be posting after. So by the time I post, we will already be married. So watch out for that. Turn on your channel notifications and your post notification because you do not want to miss it. It's going to be incredible, right? And I hope that you've enjoyed the video. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Greg and I have so much in store on this channel, and we have so much that we want to do together, and we cannot wait to post it on this channel essentially. So I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you later. I don't know when that will be, to be honest. I'm so busy, but I do have a bridal and baby shower and henna vlog to upload, so you will get that soon. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Love you all, both my ladies and the newcomers and the guys, whoever you are. Bless you. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.